Hello, Walters and Perry's editor Tim here with a quick note before we get this episode started. As you can see, this is not a traditional breakdown episode, for you see, we needed one more week off because life. So we decided we're going to drop our interview with Phil Andrews. Phil is an illustrator and was a storyboard artist on home movies and had a lot of really good insight. So please enjoy this interview, and we'll be back next week with Season 4, Episode 6, Psychodelicate.
My name is Philip Andrade, but most people who've looked at home movies credits will see me as Phil Andrews, probably. I was I was on all 4 seasons, or except for the first one. I worked on 3 seasons of home movies. As you've heard in previous interviews, like the first season, we were all just getting scenes, and then I was mostly a boarder by season 4. My life in art, a lot like most of us who worked at that studio and work in this career. We were drawing when he was little, right? Like, so I was probably 4-ish, I think. I mean, I remember drawing stampedes of horses out at recess with a stick in the dirt, that kind of thing. Like, there was real obsession with just drawing at a very early age. What was funny for me, though, is that I went through phases where right around the time I was probably like 4th, 5th, 6th grade, I was like, oh, I want to be a Disney animator. Yeah. And then I read up on it and they were like, yeah, Disney animator typically gets through about 3 seconds of animation a day. And I was like, oh my God, no, that sounds absolutely horrible. I do not want to do that for a living. And so being a more of an illustrator mind, I kind of transitioned to comics because I was like, oh, I want to do comics because then you're kind of getting to do everything. Like you're getting to tell a story, you're getting to draw, and it's mostly you. And a lot of it you can do in a month. Like that felt more digestible as someone who was looking to, even at that age, I like already knew that I wanted to draw for a living, basically.
Wow.
And so I ended up going to a local college for me. It was UMass Dartmouth, which had a art program there. Fairly small though, so there was it was a small group of other artists that we work with. But because of that small group, one of the kids that I worked there, I went to school with, I forget his name. It was Sean something, but he worked for this Tom Snyder studio. But he worked for they had 2 divisions. They had the TV division, but the real money was coming in from their CD-ROM business.
Really?
Yeah, that was actually like when I first got to Soup to Nuts, they were throwing like these like summer parties that you get with any job typically, the day where you go on retreat with your coworkers.
Sure.
That were like my first couple of years they were serving lobster because the CD-ROM business was doing so well. So we had a very, very like unrealistic like first wave into what working animation would look like. This was not my experience since then, and I don't expect it moving forward. But my friend I was in college with in illustration classes, he was working for the CD-ROM division, and one day I have one of my other friends who was also working for that tell me, oh, yeah, they tried to call you. Like, we recommended you.
Oh.
They called your house and you never got back to them. And I was like, what? At the time, I was working like at a bookbindery in this like miserable job. I was just out of college. And I was just, my jaw hit the floor. I was like, Mom, are you not, what happened to the message from the art studio? So I ended up getting in touch with them, and actually it worked out for me because they were trying to get me into the CD-ROM side of the business, but because of the timing, I got pulled in on Dick and Paula. So Dick and Paula was my first show at Soup to Nuts, And same thing as you heard previously with Davio. It was like all of us had our eyes over on home movies when
Yeah.
it first started. Dick and Paula was a lot of fun, don't get us wrong, but there was something about home movies that felt like just conceptually, like kids making movies. It was like that was literally all of us, right?
Right.
Whether all the artists feel what Brendan's feeling in this show.
Yeah.
And I think that's the real main appeal for anyone who's kind of like getting pulled into that world. And so I think that I did not work on the UPN season. I was on Dick and Paula. But by the next season, I think Dick and Paula had ended, and all of us got moved over basically to the show. And this is where my journey is a little bit different than some of the people there because I knew nothing about film and TV. I like loved movies. Don't get me wrong. I was definitely like, movies are to this day still one of my favorite things, and I've fallen more in love with it after working in this industry for so long. But when I got there, I knew nothing. Like Davio was really like he knew his stuff. He knew about movies. Same thing with Damon. I know you've heard Damon Wong's name.
Yeah.
Damon was by far, he was the border who like my jaw just dropped with every scene he gave us. And I remember asking him at one point early in my time there, because me and him were friends. I was like, so how do you storyboard? And he just looked at me. He was like, what? What do you mean? What do you mean? How do I storyboard? Like, that's like asking somebody, how do you draw? Guess what? You're going to go learn how to do it. And it takes a long time. And I kept picking his brain. And one of the things I realized early on anyway, was that what made Damon so good is he was an editor first. He went to
Mm.
school learning how to edit. So his mind was already kind of in a film universe, which was a really good marriage for home movies because you had to do so much like referencing to, all these big pop culture films essentially.
Sure.
And on top of that, he could draw and he could. So everything he did, Damon was kind of my like belt. Like I'm following that guy. What does he do?
Yeah.
And it took me years, but it was by about season 4 where I actually started to figure out the job. Where I was like, oh, okay, like I'm starting to get a grip on this. I still didn't know anything about film or movies, which, as I look back 20 years later, is my biggest like what if about home movies for me
Yeah.
because I was like, I just knew nothing. And I can't imagine what I would do now if I was given a show that was anything like home movies.
Right.
Because, wow, it is just like to be given, because they would give us 2 minutes, and especially season 2 and 3, more so season 3, they give you 2 minutes and it was all yours. You would board it, you would design your characters, you would draw backgrounds, and you would animate. You do the whole thing, and you had a month to do it.
Wow.
And it was the best crash course for like you got to do all of it, like
Right.
here's everything, figure out how to do it all. And my god, it was just like, and you don't get that kind of luxury anywhere else really. A lot of people I talk to in the industry, when I tell them about that experience, they're just like, whoa, that is what I wouldn't give for that. Like it is,
Yeah.
that's like and also one of the reasons that is more fun than not is because we just, Dave kind of mentioned this a little, but we didn't get notes. We
Right.
didn't get notes from Cartoon Network. And because of the schedule, we didn't really get notes from up above, and it was just all of us trying to make each other laugh. Right? Like my favorite moments on the show were when we would all present our work to the rest of the crew,
Yeah.
right? Because you don't get the experience of seeing the audience react to it, right? So
Right.
the crew is your audience. And so just watching it, we were all just kind of trying to make each other laugh. So yeah, that's kind of my journey from toddler to home movies.
That's wild. Now, did you go to school for like illustration or animation or anything?
Illustration, yeah.
Okay.
UMass Dartmouth, I was there for illustration, and at that point, I wanted to be a comic artist. Like when I
Right.
got to college, that was still well. As soon as I realized that at age 13, I was like, "That's what I want to do." And even for the first like 3 or 4 years, and even actually maybe even after I left Soup to Nuts, I was still kind of had that as the that was my ideal direction I wanted to head in. But I fell in love with storyboarding over the course of particularly home movies. Like that was where I really started going like I love this because this is everything. It's like you get to basically be a mini director. Like storyboard artists are mini directors. They're the what you're the first wave at a scene. So you get script or audio, you're the one making all the decisions essentially.
Yeah.
And depending on the show, some shows are more, a director will be more involved and kind of telling you this is where we're going, this is what we're doing, and you don't really have a lot of leverage. You're there to just kind of like it's a little bit more you're a cog in a machine.
Right.
Home movies was not that. Home movies was like if you can dream it up, we will. It's going to be in the show.
Right.
And it's why I just wish I had even half of my knowledge now that I did when I worked on it. Because my goodness, I was a baby.
Yeah. If you knew then what you know now.
Exactly. And in my life, I don't think I have another example that's as stark as that for the like where I could have used this information best.
Absolutely. So you said like, the storyboard artist, that's the one who gets to kind of, set the scene and dictate. So the storyboard artists, are they the ones that are usually putting all this like background stuff in the scene, or does that come a little bit later in the animation process?
No, I mean, you put everything, like especially the first couple seasons, it was all your scene.
Right.
Right. And now again, being a baby, like such a kid at the time, I did not put a lot in my backgrounds. I was like super focused on like subtle expressions or subtle this, subtle that.
Sure.
Like I was like, what's going on in the scene? And that's one of those things I regret now. Like I am like Davio did the us running in the gym sequence.
Yeah.
And it's like one of my most fond little like member berries that comes up for home movies, seeing us all running on treadmills. I'm the one who's in the blue shirt running way harder than everyone else. Davio really nailed the moment.
Yeah. And they come back too, which is what I love. Is I'm noticing some of these little background characters and catches will come back even more than I assumed on my first watch.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's really awesome. Like finding new background stuff in this show, even 25 years later, is one of the things that I will always, episodes I've seen a dozen times. I'm like, wait, pause.
Yeah.
Go back.
Yeah. We were starting the show and the internet was starting to really come into existence, right? Like in a way where people, I remember one of my fondest memories of a reaction outside of our crew is there was I don't know what the website was, but I know there was a website everyone at work went to see what the reaction was that week to the show. And even though this is so small, there's a scene during the when McGurk is babysitting and he's upstairs, I think holding the baby, if I remember correctly, and Jason and Melissa are downstairs, and he like doesn't remember Jason's name. And Jason gets it's not, the scene doesn't involve Jason, but this is one of those places where you really get to play with the scene. All I did was like add Jason like frowning, like, what?
Yeah.
Are you joking me? Hello, I'm Jason. And I remember it got like a bunch of comments on the thing, and it was like so invigorating to see all these people who had like picked on something that was so small but felt like it added a lot. And that right there is the addiction to being a storyboard artist, right? You're like, what can I add that's not in the script but is going to bring it to life?
Yes. Yeah, sometimes it is just a character making that face or two characters looking at each other while something else is going on.
Yes, exactly.
It's those subtle things that just, it makes rewatching the show so much more fun because now I know these episodes. I could probably recite these episodes, like the back of my hand. But now that I'm not paying attention to the focal point, to the middle of the screen, I can start paying a little more attention to the background. And man, it feels like every other episode we'll go through, because even while we're recording the podcast, we will have the episode up and kind of unmute, play the scenes as we're talking about them. And so many times, especially in season 4, we have to be like, wait, hold on. What's that? What did we miss? And
season 4 was when everybody was finally running on like full cylinders, basically. Like I think a lot of us who were on it really started to kind of figure, and it was the season where we really separated jobs.
Okay.
Because if I remember correctly, like I was looking through my files today, because I haven't looked at season 3 in a while. I know I sent you all the scenes that I boarded, which I just put up on YouTube recently.
Nice.
But the season 3 stuff, I was like, oh yeah, these are like all like animated scenes. So we were still doing both. We were boarding, we were animating. But season 4 was the first season where it was everybody, we had a team that was for boards, for backgrounds, and everyone gets separated basically. And that again, that was where my love for storyboarding really like blew up, because I was like, actually my first scene that really like catapulted me as far as like figuring it out and knowing how much I loved this was I listened to the audio for Brennan talking to his grandpa, and they pull out the boxing gloves. And when I heard that audio, I was like laughing my ass off, because I was like, I could see it as I heard it.
Yes.
And that's kind of a rarity. Even like, I don't think I have had more than like maybe 3 experiences in like 25 years of boarding where I got something where I was like, and I was so excited. I spent like the whole weekend in the studio because I had to get down what I had like envisioned basically.
Right.
And that was the one that really dragged me in, because I was just like, this is hysterical. So like things that weren't in the script, as an example, like when his grandfather starts spitting out like his teeth and his dentures
Yeah.
that are just like flying up into the air, like none of that stuff was like in the script. Those are just
Right.
little things you kind of add in.
Yeah. Now, has there ever been anything that you've tried to get into the background? I know they were pretty hands off with like notes and stuff like that. And I feel, especially in season 4, you guys were really kind of pushing it with some of the stuff you were getting away with in the background. Is there anything you tried to get in the background or into a scene and it was just like, nope, shut down. You cannot do that.
No, I mean, the anecdote I always heard when I even overheard other people we were working with talking about the show is like, literally the notes we get back are, can we change his hat to blue? Right? Like they were not, it was none of it was like creative changes. And I think it was the nature of the show too, right? It was so organic, and it wasn't really, and because it was kids, we weren't really doing too much that was like pushing the edge.
Sure.
Like everything was like a light touch. So it's like, yeah, we're doing rock and roll, but we're everyone should be able to access it.
Right.
So I don't think the only one who might have pushed boundaries that I don't know about was Damon.
Yeah.
Because Damon was like, if anyone was pushing things, he'd be the one. Because I mean, he did some of my favorites too, like the camp sequence where McGirt goes crazy in the woods. That was Damon.
Yeah.
And there's just talk about background details. Like there are so many things in that when all of us first saw it, we were just like, what? Oh my God, is this the same show?
Yeah.
Like this is operating on a different level. But as far as me trying to get in stuff, there's nothing that I can recall. Like if I look through scenes, I might be able to find something here and there. But most of what I was throwing in is like you have your A and B thing going on in the foreground. What like the Jason thing, what small thing can I get in there that will add humor but not steal from what's going on in front of you?
Absolutely. Something that you might not catch the first time, but on the rewatch, you're like, hey.
And if I was to go back and do it again, I mean, there'd be a lot more gnome.
Yeah. Which that's a question that comes up every interview. And I've come in contact with Aya via email. And she's so kind, and she said, hey, I'm a little nervous. I don't really do audio interviews, but if you have questions, send them over. And I figured if anyone would know why gnomes from the beginning, it would be Aya. But do you know why gnomes were just like the thing that got thrown into the background so much?
Well, if I tell you the secret, Tim, you got to make sure not to tell anybody else.
Okay, all right. I'm stopping the recording now.
You don't have to stop the recording. But, think about it. Like, why is home movies a cult classic, And clearly, if if you really think about it, that gnome's got something special going on,
Mm-hmm.
right? Yeah, there's some gnome magic that I can't get into all the details, and this
Sure.
is why everyone's being a little vague or everybody
Right.
forgets.
Right.
But
Right.
there's more to the gnome there. I would keep digging if I were
Yeah.
you. There's probably a website out there that I'm just surprised there's not a documentary about it already.
You know what? If I will make this documentary if I need to.
I think you should be the one to spearhead it. You could get all of us to do some like live action headshot interviews, and it should really be focusing on like what's going on with the gnome.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so fun to, find the gnome in every episode. My co-host Marson has been finding what I would call, I guess, the non-traditional gnomes. Let's say like a guitar shaped as a gnome in a music
Yeah.
store, or a dagger shaped as a gnome during the Shop from Your House network. So he's
My all-time favorite gnome in the show is the one floating in the jar.
yes, the one
That's my
that
favorite.
it's I don't even want to call it a background catch because it was so
It's
in the
not.
foreground.
Yeah.
And when I saw
Yeah.
it, and if when you say that too, I recall when we watch the episodes together before we record an episode of the podcast. And I remember, I feel like there was one or two additional people watching with us. And at one point, it was almost like the Leonardo DiCaprio pointing meme. Someone's just like pointing very aggressively at the TV. And,
Yeah.
the co-hosts Marson and Adele are traditionally taking notes at this time. And I think Marson is just like, what? And then looks up and is like, oh my gosh, that one is. Wow.
Yeah, that's another Damon special, if I
Yeah.
remember correctly.
Yeah. Oh, the camp scene, the hallucination scene with McGurk in
Yeah.
camp, that we had so much fun breaking that down. We had so much fun because I personally didn't catch all of the references, but I think between the three of us, we got a lot of them down. But we were just like, oh, this has got to be such a delight because so many of these are like just one or two frames, nothing crazy, nothing.
Yeah.
But it was just like one after the other after the other. So,
Yeah. And that's where, to the question I've heard you ask before about, chasing this field and especially TV or movies, and a lesson that I did get from Damon, it's really about like you gotta do your homework about what has come before you.
sure.
Like the more you know, the easier it is to do something like that. Because my God, he just littered, and that at the heart of the show was what made it so fun. Like all the spoofing of the movies that they did, the kids. I was like, yeah, that's kind of what we did in college. We were
Yeah.
literally doing that with my friends in college.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and speaking of, so I know you said you got into illustration, you were kind of aiming towards comic books, so it makes sense that storyboarding would be a natural
Yeah.
kind of spin off of that. So as you were growing up, like what are some of your influences as far as let's go animation and even comic books?
Well, animation, it's easy. Like the biggest one's probably Secret of Nim. Like I'm old enough where that was like just like, oh my God, my brain was blown open.
Yeah.
Another one was Neverending Story. That's not animation, but that one was big when I was little. And then it's all like the typical stuff you'd expect. Like Star Wars was really like my first memories are literally Star Wars,
Yeah.
right? Like I just remember driving home in my car and like seeing sand people like on the potentially off the side of the road, dark at night. I'm like,
Yeah.
was that a nightmare or what did I just see? Because
Yeah.
that was really scary. As far as comics, I mean, oh man, I read so much as a kid, and I haven't read a lot in a little bit. But I'd say some of my favorites were like, Alan Moore. Most of the stuff Alan Moore did, I was really, really blown away by. Sandman was great. Cerebus, I really liked because, a lot like home movies, one of my favorite things about Cerebus was the evolution of the artist. It's that series starts off so like backbend B comic, and by the time you get further into the series, it is like gorgeous.
Mm,
The guy's a little crazy, but
right.
it's beautiful. And I could go on. Like, I mean, I had like, the boxes of like 300 comics. I think I still have 15 of those at home at my parents' house.
Hmm.
There's just too many to lug around.
Sure. So you said you were working on what was the show, Dick and Paula?
Yep, Dig and Paula was the first one.
Before home movies. So you were aware of home movies because you were kind of
Oh yeah.
in that group. So at what point do you remember like the first episode that you personally worked on?
Oh God, I can even let me see. It's probably the first because the weird thing is, here's the weird thing about season two, if I remember correctly. I like the way you can track this stuff is we just have all the files, right, that we
Right.
worked on because as you've heard in some of the other interviews, we transferred over to Flash. And
Right.
Flash we could bring our work home.
Nice.
I don't have any files from before season three, but I'm pretty sure, like, I was, when I first heard you interview Dave, I was like, what did I work on? And I went back, like, I was like, I don't even remember anymore. It's been so long since I've gone back to look at it. And I know it was probably the second season,
Yeah.
second episode, because
Wow.
we basically all worked like in two different teams and we'd work on every other episode.
Gotcha.
And as far as what my first scene was, I don't even remember. Like I
Yeah.
could tell you more about season three, not so
Right.
much season two.
Yeah. I'm amazed that you guys just remember so much from working on this show 25, 26 years ago. So I
I mean,
appreciate the
we're all
knowledge.
probably amazed too, actually.
Well, I think that just speaks to, like you said, how much fun it was to work on the show and kind of the
Yeah,
vibe and
yeah.
stuff like that. So, now, do you have a favorite character on the show?
I mean, McGurk was by far my favorite. It wasn't even close, really. Like
Yeah,
there was just like I do vaguely remember, and maybe I'm wrong about this because again, 25 years ago, but
yeah,
everybody just wanted his scenes. Like it was just like, give me those. I do remember that the one that no one wanted, and I didn't mind it. Walter and Perry. The art working with Walter and Perry's audio all day. I mean, imagine being all day listening to those two and scrubbing through their voices for
yeah.
like 8 to 10 hours a day, right?
Oh
Like,
my.
I remember everybody just kind of like when it'd be an episode with them, they'd be like, oh no. And I imagine everyone loved them now in hindsight, but
Right.
working on them, I remember people just guffawing when they would come up. And Jason was another fun one. I really liked Jason quite a bit because he was always funny. I'm looking at some of my old scenes. Who else? Yeah, I think those. I mean, it's McGurk. They're just
Yeah.
like John Benjamin as McGurk is just like one of the most fun things to work on because, unlike other shows, which are purely scripted and most people are just reading it, there's like a life when you're getting the improv back.
Right.
There's something different in how characters are speaking to each other. So even when you're boarding two characters talking, you can do so much due to the way they're bouncing off each other.
Yeah.
So much more, I feel like. So I've always been like prone to, even on personal projects, I'm like, let's improv it.
Yeah.
Because you're going to get like humor you never thought was in the script to begin with.
Yeah. I've heard through commentary that the Walter and Perry scene specifically, the improv will get pretty wild. So, yeah, I'm sure going through
That is one of the bummers for me is that when I first got the job there, like I said, I was so nervous about it that I literally think I would go in every day and just put my headphones on and I barely talked to anyone
yeah,
for the first couple of years.
sure.
And so I almost never went and saw any of the records that were like 2 feet away. But my favorite anecdote about that is I was planted right at the front door of the studio,
Mm-hmm.
and all these celebrities would come through the front door. So like, and some of them I wouldn't know. It'd be like because I would be the one letting them in. So I remember one day I opened the door and I let these two guys in, and as they walk in, like people come over to me and like, did you just do you know what? And I'm like, what's going on? They're like, you just let they might be giants in. I was like, what? What just happened? How did I miss that?
No, they were people.
Yeah.
Yeah, so they were on the camp episode, and I think that through commentary, it was like, yeah, one of their like audio guys was a huge home movies fan, so like turned almost the entire band onto the show. So,
yeah. There was a lot of that. Like there was a few other celebrities who I even forget now. That same thing is like you let these people in, and you're just like, this is so surreal.
yeah.
Like I was literally just bookbinding 4 months ago.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm letting There Might Be Giants through a front door as I draw all day. Yeah, it's a good way to spend your day.
Yeah. I could get used to this.
Yeah.
So now I am a creative type as well. So I know sometimes when you work on projects that you have like physically, personally put the blood, sweat, and tears into, sometimes you spend a lot of time with those creative projects. So it makes it a little hard to kind of revisit those projects later. Are you able to like watch episodes of home movies, or is it a show that you're like, hey, I was there, I did my thing, and I kind of just let it exist. I don't really interact with it anymore.
No, home movies is so different than anything I've ever worked on. It is like that's a show that I could probably put on like rerun in the background. And now I haven't in ages just because we're all swimming in media right now, right?
Sure.
But home movies is like I find all of it funny, and it's all of it's good memories. Like all of it is just like we had a group of four or five people who always sat around each other, right? And it was I sat next to them for 8 years. It was like after I left the studio, I was like, oh, that is weird. I've never spent so much time sitting literally at one desk. You go through school, you're 4 years here, you're 4 years there, and then all of a sudden I was planted at the same desk for 8 years. Yeah. And fortunately, one of the things you learn when you're in animation pretty quickly is that it's pretty cool people. Yeah. They're all nerds who just want to draw, basically. And especially in animation, like the people who do that, they're making a little bit of a sacrifice because they're working in a field that's not paying as much as, say, like advertising.
Right.
So if you're in TV, you're kind of like you're doing it because you're really into it, basically. And so I haven't worked on many shows where I haven't been like, what a great team.
Yeah.
Where home movies kind of rises above, though, is the studio itself, how mellow it was, how much like everyone actually loved the show that we were working on. The nature of the studio, because it was like, my one of my favorite anecdotes I like to tell about my first few months there is we were on one of those summer retreats I was talking about, and the owner of the studio, I believe his name is Tom Snyder, was at this. We're speaking to the new recruits, a bunch of new animators. We're all sitting there, and he looks at us and he goes, "Little secret for you guys: never work harder than 80%." You will never hear that anywhere else in your entire life,
No.
but it really hit the sensibility of kind of like the maybe even the writing style of home movies. It was more about like it's more about the humor and the
Yeah.
energy than it is necessarily about like look for the right things. I think is the real lesson. Like
Yeah.
you're trying to speak to people, like make sure you're chasing that and not just like a specific craft, if that makes sense. But yeah, that show I could it's I still have the DVDs. I don't think they have Blu-rays or 4K, if I remember correctly.
Yeah. I don't think they ever did that.
I don't think they do because I think it's like, their real cult peak was, a few years after the show.
Right.
But 4K seems to be kind of blowing up now. So I wouldn't be surprised if in, next 5 years we see the box set hit.
I would love that. I
Oh my
really
God, so would I.
I really feel like the popularity of the show now is probably higher than it's ever been. I mean, I know this is kind of a the show's got a cult following and stuff like that, but just now more than ever, I feel. I mean, there's a subreddit that's very active. There's a Facebook group that's very active. It's yeah, it's just really wild to see it. I really do feel like it's just at its height right now.
When I first moved to New York, because we were talking about it being a cult classic,
Yes, yes.
one of the first times I knew that there was something going on, I had moved to New York and we hadn't done the show at that point in like a couple of years,
Hmm.
like probably 4 or 5 years, I think, because I was still at the studio for another 3, 4 years after home movies ended because we did Time Warp Trio. There was a little bit of Assy McGee, and I think around the time Word Girl started is about when I left. That was in 2006. And so I was in New York probably 2007, 2008, and I'm headed to the Met Museum, and someone comes up to me and they're like, "Where'd you get that bag?" And I had my home movies merch with me. I always carried this bag that had a little home movies patch on it. And I was
Hmm.
like, "Oh, I'm sorry. Like we got this, after a season." Like I worked on the show and they were like kind of devastated. They were like, "Oh, damn it. I wanted one of those." And I'm like, "I'm sorry. I
Oh,
can't point you in the direction of where to get this." And that was where I was like, "Whoa, that is crazy." Like and I'm talking, it's this little tiny patch. It
yeah,
wasn't like I was wearing a big giant shirt that was like, "Brendan's amazing. Here's
right.
McGurk."
Yeah. And what's wild to me is had that been me, who I'd be like, "Oh, that's an awesome bag or patch. Where'd you get that?" And if you were like, "Oh, I got that for working on the show," I'd be like, "Stop everything. You worked on that show? Let's chat."
Yeah. Yeah, I'm experiencing that only a little bit right now because I just finished boarding like about a year ago on Tiny Chef, and
Okay.
I'm sure you've probably seen the viral reaction that's happening right now
Oh
surrounding
yeah.
that show.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So it's a this is this that's the second time, 25 years, and it's only the second time I've had that experience on
Wow.
stuff that I've worked on where it's like all of a sudden everybody's talking about it, and that is it's such a surreal feeling because you are in such a little bubble. You're spending, and nowadays most of the, a lot of the work can be at home. So I've
Right.
basically been working at home since 2018.
Okay.
So you're even separated from a crew. It's a very different experience because you're like not completely in it with everyone in the same way.
Yeah. I guess that leads into one of my questions. So after home movies, what other projects have you worked on?
Oh man. So New York was a bit like up and down. The first studio I went to, we worked on a show called Three Delivery, which only I think lasted a season. Then the recession hit, so there
Mm,
wasn't any work for like a year or two. We didn't do anything.
yeah.
I then worked on a show called was it Team Toon? I might even have the name wrong. that was a Nickelodeon show that went on for about a year. And then I ended up working for a smaller agency that did kind of like small advertising stuff, and they would do shorts for people who came in like looking for their own animated like projects kind of things, and some commercial work. And then I came to Portland, Oregon to work at Shadow Machine. So my first year here was Jeff and Some Aliens,
Oh, okay.
which was a Comedy Central, I believe. Then we did Dallas and Robo for YouTube TV. And after that, I've mostly been doing like development for them.
Okay.
And then I worked briefly on In the Know, which was a stop motion thing, because Shadow Machine is much more a stop motion place now. And then the most recent thing is Tiny Chef for what was for Nickelodeon.
Right.
And hopefully the viral explosion that it's had lands it somewhere else, because there is right now people are having a little bit of a hard time. There's not a lot out there right now. TV
Yeah.
production's down quite a bit.
Yeah.
So it's really a lot of personal work at
Yeah.
the moment, basically, while we wait.
Sure.
It's one of my things I tell, especially a lot of the new animators I ever work with. I'm like, even when you're on a show, like you got to keep your own stuff going. You have to be working on personal stuff, I
Yeah.
believe. Because one, it'll help you keep your sanity, because these shows are always like, really, your job is putting out fires a lot of the time.
Right.
Like an explosion has happened. How do we fix it? How do we plug the hole? How do we make the show as good as it can be? But yeah, that's the short list. Oh, actually, there's a couple other things too. I forgot about, because these are freelance, so I'm like not placing them at studios. But I also did the Game of Zones stuff, the animated like YouTube thing.
Okay.
That was kind of like the NBA and Game of Thrones merged together.
Nice.
There was also this soccer show that I did for the Bleacher Report, which is like a reality TV show. And I think that's about it. Yeah. So it's like after 25 years, there's like a thousand different things,
Sure.
basically. Like you're jumping from here to there and grabbing whatever you can.
Right. And out of all those projects, did any of them like really kind of make it to the same level as home movies, or was home movies just like that?
None came close. Like my coworkers are probably like beyond sick of hearing about home movies,
Right.
because I think everywhere I've gone, I'm usually like, sitting in a corner being like, you weren't on home movies. This is look at this scar on my leg. It's like the Jaws scene where I'm like, here's the real battle wounds. I've had groups of people I've worked with that I've liked as much, but I would
Sure.
say that home movies was unique in what it was, how it was made, the age we were at too, because a lot of us on it were, in our mid 20s,
Sure.
early to mid 30s, right? So it's the beginnings of a lot of careers, basically. Yeah, I'm trying to think. I think that's home. I mean, home movies is definitely the number one, and I've had a few that I've enjoyed, but they, haven't been quite what this was.
Right. Just not the same. With kind of the cult following that the show has had, and it's, in my opinion, still very, very popular. What would you think if they ever like tried to bring it back? Do you think that's something that would even be possible, or do you think it's just it is what it is and it's perfect for the time it was made and we don't really need to elaborate any more on it?
I mean, I would never say no to more,
Right.
but I would say if you really want to make it happen, it's time to start praying to the gnome, right?
Yeah.
Like we need to get the garden gnome involved, and maybe we can make it happen.
Yeah.
He might be the only one who can revive it for us.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, man. Oh, I did ask you if you had a favorite character on this show. Now, removing yourself from the actual process of creating the show, do you have a favorite episode of this show that you just, anytime it kind of comes up in the rotation, you're like, oh, yeah, I'm going to sit down and watch this one?
I mean, the camp one was always one of my favorites. The scene I did in that one was the hugging group at the beginning.
Yeah.
And that was the Damon scene that we had talked about earlier.
Sure.
Davio had some amazing stuff in that episode. The Renaissance Fair, also, like, that's the ultimate what's going on in the background stuff. Yeah. I do think the finale was one of the most interesting finales because it is so like heartbreaking.
Right.
That one will always be like pretty big for me. Another one I really enjoy. This one's more of a. This is also storyboard related for me. Why I liked it as much as I did, but you might actually know the episode more than me. But when McGurk, his ex girlfriend, tries to get him into like the new age
Yes.
crystals.
Yes.
So there's a sequence. This is an example of like how much Damon stuff could like blow me away. But there was a sequence where McGurk's lying on the floor,
Mm-hmm.
and you just see her like placing the crystal on his forehead,
Yeah.
and then the camera pans out, and you see him like laying on the floor, surrounded by crystals. And for me, like none of that was in the script. That was all Damon,
Right.
right? Like the script was just them having a conversation.
Yeah.
And so I was always like every show I've ever gone on to, I'm like, how do you get there?
Yeah.
How do you pull something out of what you're given to give that? But yeah, it's a lot of the ones I hear you talk about that I've heard you talk about with other people in the interviews are often most of us that those are our favorites.
Sure.
And then it just becomes like little scenes here and there that you remember that you're
Right.
like, yeah, that just stick with you.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, my default favorites were always Renaissance and Guitarmageddon, and Camp 2 is such a fun episode. Up until we did this podcast, I was always like season 3 is my favorite. It is so good. I think that's when the writing really kind of hit its stride, the animation, everything just came together in season 3.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're in season 4 now, and man, I'm like, God, there's so many great episodes in season 4.
They're not as like catchy as some of what's in season 3, but as a whole, it again, the whole team kind of like really knew their stride at that point.
Right.
Like most shows too, in general, if they're well done and they're a show you like, I can almost guarantee, especially the shows we grew up with, go back in season 3s are always when things come together because that's when the writers know who the characters are.
Right.
Everyone who's whether it's live action or animation, like everybody just knows who they're doing now. And that kind of frees you up to like make the world more real,
Yeah.
to do more with what you're working with, basically. So
Absolutely. So now, when you guys were working on season 4, did you know the entire time you were working on season 4 that was going to be the last season, or did you find out kind of partway through?
I'd like to tell you that I could remember, but I can't.
Oh,
Like that's one of those things that fell into the black hole of
Sure.
25 years ago.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I don't. Because, the scary thing about the end of any season is, you obviously don't know right away. And they obviously knew just based on what they were able to write with that last episode, right?
Mm-hmm.
So even that kind of let you know that we knew beforehand.
Right.
But for those of us working in animation, like I bet I could more easily remember, like, how am I going to pay rent
Right.
in a few months because of the show? You know what I mean? Like your memories about the show are almost separate from what is happening in your real life, basically, right? And with the unusual thing and the great thing about Super Nuts is we had like here's another anecdote about the studio that was like one of the things that made it magical. I think maybe it was after home movies even. We were out of work. Like we had no shows at the time. They were trying to sell stuff. And while we waited, they had nothing for us to do. So they let a bunch of us like make paintings for the studio that like all related to shows we were working on.
Oh, wow.
That they hung up all around the studio. That is not how the animation industry works, right? Like when there's no show, you all go home and wait for the next thing or move on. And this was a place where it was like, nah, this is your job. This is your thing for the next, again, I was there 8 years and a bunch of my coworkers were actually there a lot longer because I don't know what year the studio closed down, but it wasn't that long ago.
Wow.
So it had long legs.
Yeah. Well, and I think especially nowadays, and I'm sure you've seen it or heard about it with not just animation, but video game development or any kind of development, crunch and, just like the absolute mistreating of employees and,
Mm,
all that kind
yep.
of stuff, to hear the head of the studio be like, hey, 80%, that's good enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I would also say to that, not so much that good enough, but more about like, where do you put your focus?
Sure.
Right? Like, I think it was a quick way of him to kind of try to get us to like, know what exactly your mission statement is.
Yeah.
Right. And it's not necessarily like just on making it look good. Like, we're trying to make people laugh.
Yeah.
How do you do that, So, but sorry, go ahead.
Oh no, I think that's kind of a breath of fresh air, and I understand what you're saying about more, not so much the quality of your work, but the focus of your work being that 80%. But it's just, that's such a breath of fresh air when you hear people with this grind set mentality of like, no, 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 you gotta work 7 days a week, 25 hours a day, you gotta give 120%, and that's not feasible for anybody to do.
Well, I think, I can't say it always makes the work worse because, we've seen some great things that come out of that environment, obviously.
Right.
But, there's this thing. I don't know how many people have ever seen the Phil Tippett quote. I'd recommend looking it up. He was the stop motion animator. And this is something that we pass around at every studio sometimes when the show is particularly challenging or you're working for a more difficult client. But it's basically just about when digital effects got involved for Phil Tippett in particular, it made his life a lot more difficult because people could come in and mess with what he was doing by the frame.
Mm.
And he goes, back in the day, we were trying to create things and people weren't overly obsessed about the frame. Their minds were kind of more focused on what we were getting overall.
Mm-hmm.
And if something was off by just a little bit, that's fine. Does it get across the point of what we were trying to, does it still make people laugh? Does it still do the thing? And this varies for every project.
Sure.
Like it's hard to pin. Every project's so different, and it requires a different approach.
Right.
But it is a funny. Again, just look up the Phil Tippett Phil Tippett quote on production, and
Yeah.
it'll be. And I love most of the producers I've worked for, but it is a good example of like. Anytime you get someone who's challenging, to your point of like the people who've been abused on as they work, that quote is usually central
Yeah.
to what the issue is, I think. And I don't want to butcher it, so I'm going to let everybody look it up.
Not a bad idea. There's one topic I wanted to talk to you about, and especially because you're an artistic type, you're a creative type, you storyboarded on this show. I do graphic design. I'm not really super good at illustration. I've never really tried animation or anything like that, but just graphic design and stuff like that. And I was just curious, your general feeling of how AI is being integrated into almost every aspect of our life. I'm sure as an artistic type, as a creative type, you got some big feelings about this. And
Yeah. It's funny. I was thinking about this coming up beforehand because I don't think this has come up in any of the other conversations, or at least it hasn't been edited in to any of the other conversations. It's been a challenging topic for a lot of us to like debate, right?
Sure.
To even talk about, because it is one of the reasons that a lot of the people I know are out of work right now. It's one of
Right.
the main reasons.
Mm-hmm.
Like to be honest with you, just about everyone I know that has previously worked in the industry is at home right now,
Yeah.
waiting for the next gig. Some of that's AI, some of that's just what's been going on in the industry.
Sure.
A lot of it is actually what's happened with streaming. Everybody was competing, and so there was a boom.
Mm-hmm.
But once Netflix won the race, that was kind of, the bubble burst.
Right.
And so it all came at a crossroads at the same time of like just AI, all these things crashing together all at once. So the industry is in a metamorphosis state at the moment.
Right.
And you also factor in like, the younger generation is kind of more of like a TikTok, YouTube.
Yeah.
They're not exactly major TV consumers.
Yeah.
I think that's another big part of it, basically. So what I think's gonna happen, without really knowing what I'm talking about at all, is just a major like evolution of what we were used to what it could be. Stories not going anywhere.
Right.
There's always going to be a place for it, and people are always going to be chasing it. But I myself am just wondering and trying to figure out myself as a personal creator, what is that next step? And as far as using AI, I'm not using it personally.
Right.
I don't need to, right? Like
Yeah.
like kind of to your previous topic about being like a graphic designer. I've heard you ask this question in a couple of the interviews where you've been like, what do you suggest to people getting in, or to people who are kind of like, and really it's the same challenge every artist has ever had, and you need to find your own voice. It's one
Yeah.
of the reasons why I say you got to chase your own work. So let's just use you as an example. You love this style of animation. I would actually highly recommend for you that you get the Animate program
Yeah.
and learn how to do, like, just for the fun of it. Try to do like pull some of your these podcasts and animate just you and your other two, like talking. I'm sure you could find some tutorials that are like quick tutorials on how to do it.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, once you get your legs under it, it is pretty easy and can be a lot of fun, right?
Yeah.
But approach it as fun first, not
Right.
as like oh, this is the wave of the future. Here I'm going. It's more like what do I enjoy doing with my time? Because I think that's kind of what AI is forcing on us.
Right.
Like, how am I gonna tell the story that I want to get across that also allows me to pay my bills?
Right. Right.
And that's going to be a bigger challenge for everyone over the next like decade or two, as the chips start to fall and everybody starts to figure out what the next steps are.
Yeah.
And maybe I'm even being a little bit over dramatic about all that, because it could just be there's another TV boom and movie boom in the next like 5 years.
Yeah.
Right. And it turned, and a lot of that kind of like recenters somehow. But I don't think anyone knows yet, because I think, one of the first things that's probably going to go is storyboarding, as much as I love it.
Mm.
I've already had an offer just this week from an advertising studio to go do boards for a commercial, which this is one of the reasons I haven't rushed to do advertising work, and they're only using AI to make the boards. And you got to use a little bit of your skill, because the programs aren't good enough to get like specifics.
Right.
So like you'll work your way through getting to the frame. Oh, that expression doesn't work. I'll bring it in Photoshop and adjust that.
Right.
But the borders can, instead of doing 3 frames a day, now they can do like 7 to 8.
Right.
Everything I'm reading is kind of telling us that that's where it's going. Like that is, and that will probably be TV. Advertising will probably be first, because nobody's going to be too upset if working artists aren't working on the next commercial. But it is going to be probably the training ground for how that works, basically. And there's studios working on how to replace it all, right? So
Yeah.
you'll still need someone there, even at like the simplest level, who knows framing, knows composition,
Sure.
knows how to tell a story. So like you'll still be using the basic tools you learned, but for me, I'm an illustrator, and it looks like that's the thing that will be eliminated from like commercial work.
Yeah.
And I could be completely wrong, because I do think there's also going to be a thirst for like people being like, yeah, but I like to know. It's like the home movies. Can you imagine if home movies was made with AI?
No.
No, you would not have the attachment to it.
Absolutely.
There'd be no people for you to gravitate to. There'd be no interviews.
Right.
You'd be interviewing. There's going to be a kid in 20 years interviewing bots.
Right.
So you were just in your infancy as an AI bot. Like, what's it like 25 years later, now that you're a fully formed AI?
Yeah. Yeah.
And all you can do right now is kind of have a little bit of a chuckle with it, because otherwise we'll go crazy.
Absolutely.
It's been really hard for a lot of people I know.
Yeah.
And it's hard to watch all my friends and, all the people I've gotten to know over the years kind of like at a point of like, I don't know any personally yet who's left the industry,
Right.
but I do know people driving FedEx trucks right now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and I guess my hope is that I think that, yes, the inevitability is we are about to get a tsunami of AI created art, AI generated illustrations, AI
Yeah.
driven commercials and stuff like that. I think there's going to be a period of flooding where it's just going to become the norm. And I think people who have been involved in the field, and I think people, even though I am not an illustrator and I just dabble in graphic design, I'm a creative type. I do stand-up comedy. I do all kinds of creative stuff. I thrive for art that has a soul inside of it. I
Yeah.
thrive on art that's made by people. And I think enough people who appreciate art are going to start kind of waving away that tsunami and saying, no, I need the real deal, that I'm hoping it can create some kind of resurgence. But man, it's in a field where it's already so touch and go, where once you lose a job, you never know where your next job's going to come from. Like, things are already so shaky that it just, I can't imagine having to go through it. Like, once we are here with this just elevation of AI technology and it being incorporated into every facet of the creative process, that's got to be.
I mean, yeah, you're hitting at the central point on the board, right? Of just like we said earlier, people are always going to need stories, and I just don't know where the human still can succeed past AI is that they can come up with something that says something about who they are, right? Because the art that speaks to us most, and this has been the way of artists from the beginning of time, essentially, is like we're relating to the artist that's telling you something about them that you can relate to, and you go, yeah, I'm on board with that person. I'm going to follow that guy. But it's, the first thing that came up with AI that like I was like, oh no, because Google just figured out how to get audio. And
Yeah.
so there was those like Bigfoot AI things that are cropping up everywhere. The vlog Bigfoot
Yeah.
on Instagram. And it's, there's Star Wars ones now, and it's starting to be like, that was the first time I was like, oh man, and now for us who are older, where we've grown up with a media ecosystem that we're used to, yes, we'll probably never be completely sucked into the Bigfoot blog.
Right.
But for a kid, I've got a 5-year-old now.
Mm.
I'm going to be watching him go through
Right.
world. And it is going to be fascinating to see what happens when he sees the Bigfoot vlog.
Right.
Right? Like, how does that shape what he looks for as he gets older? He's got a dad who's going to kind of be trying to veer him towards humans, right?
Yeah.
I work in a creative field. I'm going to be trying to get him to see the worth in that. But I more worry about just like, we're in a universe where I just, reality TV is a great example. I don't watch a lot of reality TV. I get the appeal. I've seen a few things, but that was kind of the first step out of something crafted.
Mm-hmm.
It's more spectacle than it is you finding something that tells you something about life, that inspires you, that points you in a good direction. But yeah, I worry though about what will be the trappings for my kid as AI really takes over. Like,
right.
It's just like, will it help? Maybe there's what I'm really hoping, just to not end the AI conversation in such in a dark tone, but I'm like, what are the benefits, right? Like, we could look at the internet and be like, here's the stuff that was awful, but here's where it benefited us massively. Right. And the internet hasn't felt like it's been doing that for the last 10 years.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that's because we have no choice but to focus on how to improve things. So we spend more time focusing on what was bad.
Right.
And I wonder if, what if we were to sit down and go, okay, well, what were the positives? What can we learn from the good things that came out of it? Like, what can we chase out of the good things that came out of it? And what I mean by all that is like, what will AI do that will actually benefit the artist?
Right.
There's not a lot I can see at the moment.
Right.
And I'm just saying, I hope that it does.
Right.
I hope that it does allow, like, will there be an artist that comes out of the blue that uses AI in a way none of us could have imagined because we were all worried about not getting this voice I'm talking about, the creative center, and maybe someone figures out a way to use it that's like, doesn't feel like it's stealing from all the artists who came before him.
Absolutely.
Because that's the real issue.
Yes, 100%. And I think that's a great outlook to have on it. Is the hope is that AI benefits the artist and doesn't replace.
Replace, yeah. And right now it just feels like replace because there's so many jobs that are just gone at the moment. They're not there. And I am hearing about jobs that are like, yeah, the AI train has left the station. So get on board.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you're going to be left behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And just like you are kind of curious how AI is going to impact your child, I've been having multiple conversations with my parents about spotting AI, seeing or hearing something shady.
I'm not even touching that side of the coin. Yeah, the parents are another whole issue. I feel like the most of them have already been sucked into the bad part of the internet.
Yep. Yeah. So luckily my parents are they're still pretty hip. They're still pretty in tune to what's going on. And, when I can have these conversations with them and, not seem like I'm lecturing them or scolding them or just, giving them a friendly heads up that this stuff is out there and it is wild. So.
Yeah. It's going to be a crazy next few years. And especially with as quickly as this stuff moves, I think it's hard for us to even fathom how much is going to turn over, change, and become something completely new.
Absolutely. Well, thank you for going down that dark AI road with me. I was expressing to Adele, my fiance, last night. I'm like, I really want to talk to some of these people about AI and all that stuff. I mean, these are the people we want to hear from about it, but it's also, God, it's such a scary conversation sometimes.
I mean, I'm keeping it as light as I can because, we're celebrating home movies and most of the artists I talk with, it's a much darker. It's again, I'm going back to that Jaws sequence where we're all in the back of the boat showing each other our scars.
Yeah.
Like I feel like the shark is hitting the boat now.
Right. Absolutely.
Right. Our scene just got interrupted.
Well, I'm going to try to get this ship back on course and say, let's do this. That was a very heavy conversation. I appreciate you having that conversation with me.
No problem.
Let's shift back to home movies and let's just kind of cap it with this. Like, do you have any moments, let's say working on the show or that you've gotten into the show, anything that you just, when I say your time at home movies, like just your favorite memory of either part of the show or working on the show that just even 25 years from now, you're never, ever going to forget?
I mean, mine's a little more global because honestly, home movies kind of saved my life. Like, if I did not get the job at Soup to Nuts, there's a very good chance I never would have left home.
Right.
I went to a school that wasn't exactly like a booming, the quote I heard when I got into illustration, my first illustration teacher said this. He goes, okay, here's the math for you people now that you've chosen art school. In 5 years, only 10% of you will be actually working in the art field. And he's like, within 10 years, it's going to be down to 5%. So you actually have going to school, and this is globally, not just my school, I think. And again, I think the internet changed some of this math.
Sure.
Many more jobs cropped up, but this is, I'm going back to like 1995. Basically, you had a 5% chance of succeeding in the field. And succeeding is just having a job in it. And so when I first got that call telling me that I was hired, I don't know if in my life I've ever had that moment again where someone called and I was like, "Oh my God, it happened. I'm in. I made it somewhere, and I'm no longer binding books." So for me, when I look back at home movies, it's much more about like this was the first ship that I was able to get on that allowed a career that allowed me to like figure my stuff out. Because honestly, the what I've learned in the years since, a lot of it started on home movies. A lot of the things that I love most about everything that I do began there. Like it was so incredibly formative that it's still kind of like I'm still baffled by it sometimes, like just the weird luck of it. I've listened to Dave's interview and very similarly, like he got his job at a keg,
Yeah.
right? Like it's such a weird journey, right? If you're in this field, and it's not like I think it's a pretty unique one, and it requires a lot of luck. So when I look back at home movies, it's a lot just like whoa, the nature of the show seemed to fit even what I'm describing.
Yeah.
That family oriented, but we're all dealing with some of our own trauma, right?
Sure.
And how do we do that together? By making a lot of silly jokes.
Yeah. Yeah. That very beautifully put. I'm so happy that home movies was the one that, gave you the hope that you can do something in this field. And I just hope you know that home movies definitely it means so much to you, and it was your first real, gig in the field, but it means so much to so many people. I think that's just something that you should be very happy to hang your hat on, that fact that you helped create this thing that means so much to so many people. So genuinely, thank you, Phil, for everything you've done.
Well, I'm glad you guys liked it as much as you did.
It's been such a great show to go back and revisit, even all these years later. The amount of times we hear a joke that was said 25, 26 years ago, and we're like, wow, that's a little more relevant now than it probably even was back then.
Yeah, the best shows are usually do that, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I love home movies because it can simultaneously do that, but then drop these pop culture references that I have to explain to my co-hosts who are in their 30s. So
yeah, definitely. It's definitely like you're gonna have to do a little research. There's a lot here for you to mine.
Yeah. And what I love about it, and I've said this since the beginning of the podcast, I'm obsessed with this show. I will break down every episode scene by scene. I will go through and rewatch every episode 2-3 times. There's still going to be stuff I miss. There's still going to be references I didn't catch. So yeah, just kudos to you guys for making such a timeless show that also kind of puts a timestamp on that certain point in time that it's just so fun to revisit, man.
Yeah, I'm with you. Let's get a campaign going for those 4Ks.
Absolutely. Let's do it. And another thing I wanted to mention when we were talking about, like, if the show ever did get a revival, what that would look like. And then also season 4, I think the way that the show was ended, especially on the series finale, was done with such grace and so well done that a lot of times when I posit that question to people, they say, nope, I think they ended it exactly how they needed to end it. So,
I mean, they're not wrong, right?
Yeah.
Like, it's the question we have with every franchise or IP that gets like reborn.
Mm-hmm.
All I would say to that is, it's less, if anything new is to come, it's less about for us, and it's more about what 13-year-old was putting on his CV in 2 or 3 years.
Sure.
And discovers his McGurk
Yeah.
whatever that, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's about the idea. Again, this is going back to my kid. It may, having a kid makes you think a lot about like, what is he going to be into? I'd
Right.
love him to be into Star Wars, but
Right.
I'm probably going to have to follow him into death metal.
Right.
Right? Like, it's not about getting him to get into my stuff.
Yeah.
Where is he going to go? Because maybe I find some cool things doing that.
Yeah.
So to the point, yeah, it's probably best ended. And if you revisit it, maybe something new. Maybe it's the Walter and Perry show now. Right? Maybe Walter and Perry are adults, and
Right.
God knows what they're into now. I mean, we could spend an hour and a half just kind of coming up with what would be the most amazing offshoot.
Yeah.
I mean, we've already talked about the gnome has to have one.
Right. Well, Phil, I think that's a perfect place to end it. Again, I can't thank you enough for doing this interview, man. This was so much
my
fun.
pleasure.
So much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I was happy to swim in the world of home movies again for a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, we appreciate it so much. And I'm going to ask you this as long as we're still recording and you're on record. I know I've done it a couple times in the past, but if I'm ever in the middle of a breakdown and I've got a question, is it okay if I reach out with a couple questions, even if you don't know the answer?
Oh, absolutely.
I
will probably not, but definitely feel free to reach out.
Yeah. Well, I'm slowly collecting people who worked on home movies, almost like Pokemon. So it's been really cool. Now I get to kind of cross-reference a few things. So
Yeah.
I'm getting so much more insight. So thank you guys so much.
Very fun. Yeah, no problem.
So, all right. Well, Phil, that's going to do it for us. So once again, thank you so much for the interview, and you have a good rest of your day. I'll talk to you, okay?
Yeah, thanks, Tim. You too.
All right, take care.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye. That's going to do it for this interview on Rewatching Home Movies. Join us next week for Season 4, Episode 6, Psycho Delicate. If you liked what you heard, check out our Linktree at Linktree/RHMpod. There you can like, follow, and subscribe. Send us an email to request free stickers or leave us a 5-star review. I will read 5-star reviews on the podcast. On behalf of myself, Tim, and my co-host Marcin, and Adele, thank you for rewatching home movies with us. We'll see you next week. Bye.